Nobody saw it coming. The interview was supposed to be over. The crowd was already celebrating. The cameras were rolling through the usual post-game questions. Then something happened that stopped the entire arena cold. A basketball legend who almost never speaks publicly walked straight onto the court, interrupted the interview, and delivered a message about Caitlin Clark that sent shockwaves across the sports world. And what happened next left even Clark struggling to hold back tears. Caitlin Clark had just done what Caitlin Clark seems to do best: win. After leading the Indiana Fever back from a difficult deficit, she finished the night with a spectacular performance. Big shots, clutch plays, complete control when the pressure was highest. The crowd was electric. Fans were on their feet. Everything felt normal, at least for a moment. As the post-game interview began, Clark stood smiling beside the broadcast crew, answering questions about the game and praising her teammates. Nothing unusual. Nothing controversial, just another successful night. But then the noise inside the arena changed. It wasn't the normal roar of celebration. It was louder, different, almost like thousands of people had suddenly noticed something at the same time. The interviewer paused. Clark looked confused. The camera angle shifted, and that's when everyone saw who was walking toward the broadcast set. Larry Bird. The same Larry Bird who built Indiana basketball into something legendary. The same Larry Bird whose competitive fire terrified opponents for decades. The same Larry Bird who rarely makes public appearances and almost never inserts himself into basketball debates. Yet there he was, walking directly toward Caitlin Clark. And suddenly, the entire arena was holding its breath. Nobody knew what was happening. Nobody knew why he was there. But everyone knew it was important. Because people like Larry Bird don't step into the spotlight unless they have something meaningful to say. And what came next stunned everyone. Bird reached the interview area. The cameras zoomed in. Clark turned toward him, visibly surprised. For a brief second, the arena became almost silent. Then Bird began speaking. Not with excitement, not with theatrics, just with the calm confidence that made him one of basketball's most respected figures. He made it clear he had been watching Clark, watching the conversations surrounding her, watching the criticism, watching the pressure, and watching the way she continued to compete through all of it. What made the moment powerful wasn't simply praise. Athletes praise each other all the time. This felt different. Because Bird wasn't just complimenting her performance, he was defending her, publicly, directly, without hesitation, and that changed everything. For months, Caitlin Clark had been at the center of nearly every discussion in women's basketball. Every game became a headline. Every foul became a debate. Every comment became a story. Supporters praised her impact on the sport. Critics questioned whether the attention was deserved. Some argued she was transforming the league. Others pushed back. The conversations never seemed to stop. Through it all, Clark kept doing the same thing: showing up, competing, improving, winning. But the pressure was relentless. Imagine entering a professional league with millions of people analyzing every decision you make, every missed shot, every turnover, every reaction. Most players never experience that level of scrutiny. Clark faced it from day one. And that's where Bird's message carried so much weight. Because if there's anyone who understands what it's like to be criticized for being great, it's Larry Bird. During his career, he wasn't universally loved. He was challenged, questioned, targeted, and constantly tested. Yet he kept proving people wrong, again and again. That's why many fans believed Bird saw something familiar in Clark. Not necessarily the style of play, not necessarily the statistics, but the mindset, the competitiveness, the refusal to back down, the willingness to embrace pressure instead of avoiding it. Those are qualities that don't show up on a box score, but legends recognize them immediately, and Bird's appearance seemed to send a clear message. Stop focusing on the noise. Start paying attention to what you're actually witnessing, because something special is happening. And almost instantly, the sports world reacted. Social media exploded. Clips spread across every major platform. Fans debated the significance of the moment. Former players weighed in. Commentators discussed it for days. The reason was simple. Larry Bird's words matter, not because he's loud, not because he constantly seeks attention. Actually, the opposite. His silence is exactly what gives his voice power. When someone speaks every day, people eventually stop listening. When someone rarely speaks, every word carries weight, and Bird has earned that weight through decades of excellence. That's why this moment felt bigger than a typical endorsement. It felt symbolic, almost like one basketball generation acknowledging the next. A legend looking at the future and saying, "I see it." For Clark, that kind of validation can't be measured. Not in points, not in assists, not in jersey sales. Because respect from someone like Larry Bird comes from a completely different place. It's earned. And perhaps that's what made the moment emotional. Not just for Clark, but for fans watching, because they understood what it represented. It wasn't about popularity. It wasn't about marketing. It wasn't about headlines. It was about recognition. Recognition from someone who understands exactly what greatness requires. The sacrifices, the criticism, the expectations, the loneliness that sometimes comes with being the center of attention. Bird understood all of it, and by stepping forward publicly, he reminded everyone of something important. Great players aren't always appreciated immediately. History proves that. The athletes we celebrate today were often doubted yesterday. They were criticized, questioned, second-guessed. Many of them faced resistance long before they received admiration. That's simply part of the journey. The bigger the impact, the louder the reaction. And Clark's impact is impossible to ignore. Attendance numbers have risen. Television audiences continue to grow. New fans are discovering women's basketball every week. Whether someone supports her or criticizes her, one thing is undeniable: people are watching. And that kind of influence changes sports. It creates momentum. It inspires future athletes. It expands opportunities. That's how entire leagues evolve. One player captures attention. One generation inspires another. And suddenly, the game grows. Maybe that's what Bird recognized more than anything. Not just talent, not just potential, but influence. The rare ability to shift the direction of a sport. Because legends often see these things before everyone else does. They notice the work ethic, the confidence, the competitive fire, the obsession with improvement, the qualities that statistics alone can never explain. And when they recognize those qualities, people listen, as they should. Because moments like this don't happen often. They can't be manufactured, they can't be scripted, and they can't be forced. They happen naturally, which makes them unforgettable. Years from now, basketball fans may remember this moment for more than what was said. They may remember what it symbolized: a bridge between generations, a legend acknowledging a rising star, a reminder that greatness doesn't ask for permission. It earns recognition through performance, perseverance, and resilience. Caitlin Clark's story is still being written. There are more games ahead, more records to chase, more challenges to overcome, and more unforgettable moments waiting to happen. But after this, one thing feels certain. The basketball world isn't just watching Caitlin Clark anymore. It's watching history unfold. And the next chapter may be even bigger than the last.